Well, greetings and salutations, test takers. This is Dean Tenney, aka the Series 7 Guru, coming to you from my studio here in fabulous Las Vegas with our Tuesday weekly community Q&A. I'll get some housekeeping out of the way, and then we'll answer any questions you may have. Any content questions from any FINRA or NASA exam. Do me a favor, let me know what series exam you're taking or you're joining us from. And if you do have a question, it's helpful for me to be able to pull it out of the chat. We have lots of people chatting, and that's wonderful. Part of this is content, but it's also fellowship and some fun, hopefully. And we have victorious test takers pop in, and sometimes it's easier for me to pull it out of the chat if you tell me what exam you're taking with a capital Q, and then I can pull it out of there a little easier. And that way I know what exam, because there's, content is tested on lots of different exams, and the depth or shallowness of how it's tested is dependent on that exam. So some housekeeping details, and we'll get right underway here. I am teaching a collaborative Series 7 Guru Kaplan class. That looks like the 66. I need to update the banner. That's come and gone already. But I'm doing a SIE April 8th through 10th. And I'm doing a Series 7 April 15th through 18th. If you want to join me, you can sign up for those classes at Kaplan. The 15% discount code for all Kaplan products and services is Guru15. Good paid supplement is our friend Brian Lee, Test Geek Exam Prep LLC. And we have a 20% discount over there for our viewers, and that's Guru20. So those are our two things. If you missed the live stream, it's available as a podcast on YouTube as well as Spotify. The best free supplement to your paid study materials is my YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is organized in series playlists. I don't know how to make this any clearer. It's, people say, where do I start? And you start with the playlist, the one that says start here. It says start here. The videos are in suggested watch order, and the playlists are in suggested watch order, but it's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. If you have a particular thing you're interested, again, I don't know how to make it any clearer. Go to the channel search bar, put in margin or accrued interest or credit call spread, whatever it is, the topic you're looking for. If you put that in the channel search bar, that'll bring up all the content we have available on that particular subject. So if you're looking for a particular thing, use the channel search bar. If you're looking to binge, use the series playlist. Luis, I don't know if you're joining us, but this is the same banner that is in every coaching call drop. It tells you it's a free 30-minute coaching call. The date is there and the time. It's not a floating contingent liability I have with you. Luis's case, he was busy, and I'm trying to reschedule with him. We'll get it done. But I just want to be clear. This is not a floating kind of a thing. If you can't take advantage of the coaching call, you can assign it to someone else. You can share it. It's recorded and shared with others. All right, so let's see. Any other housekeeping? I think that's pretty much it. Let's go to our comments and see what we got going. Dean, do you have any takes on evaluating best prep material for Series 7, STC, Kaplan, Notman, Pass Perfect? Let me start with Pass Perfect. I think Pass Perfect is a good test prep vendor. I do think they give you too much, and they take you in the weeds on a lot of stuff that will not be tested, particularly margin. If you would like, you can go to my tutoring replays, and I had somebody who bought an hour tutoring just to work not Pass Perfect margin questions. I felt kind of bad because their margin question she's never going to encounter on the actual exam. But too much is better than not enough. So that's my thoughts on Pass Perfect. STC, I think is weakness is the QBank, another fine prep vendor. I don't feel bad if you tell me, Dean, I'm using Pass Perfect, I'm using Kaplan, I'm using NUM, and I'm using STC. I do not think you're a risk. That being said, the STC Kaplan, the STC QBank is not as deep as the Kaplan QBank. Every once in a while, somebody who's scoring well, not just on STC, it's just easier on STC to have this happen. They're getting scores that would reflect they would pass the exam, and then all of a sudden, they do everything they're told, they miss the mark, and that can be a function of getting scores on practice tests that are a function of not understanding it, but memory, where you've done it like 15 times. I think Kaplan's the best. Notman uses the Kaplan QBank, and then they have, as well, on top of that, they have what they call their benchmarks. I like Notman. I got a lot of friends that work over there. They give me permission, as well as STC. The channel's agnostic, so I have permission from STC. I don't have it from Past Perfect, but Notman and Kaplan to give you free look on some of their content. But I love Notman. I would consider Notman to be kind of more of a white glove experience. Primarily, if you're an individual and you're paying your own, it's going to be a little more money. But if it's a corporation's paying, then that's good. Just remember, though, Notman is on the backstage using the Kaplan QBank. Good news about that is I can help you. So you can send me the Notman QID and I can bring that up backstage as well. So I hope that was helpful. My recommendation would be Kaplan, no surprise. And the 15% discount code for all Kaplan products and services is Guru15 at checkout. All right, see what else we got going on today. Hello, Yeti. Oh, man, I know you're Yeti with 2 T's, but I had a student I didn't bring up here. They sent me a beautiful Yeti coffee mug with Series 7 Guru on it. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. It's so big, it doesn't actually fit in my little coffee holder here in the studio. But hello. Hello, Ruth. Ashland, Series 7, all right. Look a little young to be taking a Series 7, but that's okay. Sales supervisor in the house, or would-be sales supervisor in the house, Series 10. 65 Yeti, investment advisor representative, all right. We got a general securities principal in the house, or would-be general securities principal in the house, Amanda. Amanda, I'm not sure, but I might have a 24 shared screen final going up in the next couple days. We haven't had that for the 24. One of the popular things we have on the channel is either Dean doing an exam where, I hit pause and, you can hit pause and see how you do, and I explain it and riff on it. And then we have versions of that. We don't have that for 24, but I think we will shortly, where, I do it on a shared screen with a test taker and they tell me what their thoughts are. And then, I either, riff or correct it, or, we talk about it. So hopefully I'll have that up soon if you're taking the 24. 65. Wow, 65 is pretty popular. Ohio, Buckeye, taking 65 tomorrow. We'll make sure you get a good night's sleep. The biggest thing the day before is good rest, and then be confident. And Michelle, your execution of your study plan, be confident in yourself, and most importantly, be confident in your answers tomorrow. Don't be changing answers unless you know you got it wrong. Still shouldn't change it. You know what the right answer is. I love all of Brian's content. I think, his PDFs as well as his videos are spot on. He doesn't put anything on there that isn't something that is testable. I mean, so, his word for that is distillation, right? He tries to distill it. So I'm glad to hear you got his economics. Make sure you know the difference between monetary policy, fiscal policy, who controls monetary policy, the Fed, tools of the Fed. Make sure you know fiscal policy, government spending, and taxation. Make sure you know a little bit about the Lord John Maynard Keynes and demand side economics. It's pretty broad. Michelle, I always say, if you want to sound like you know what you're talking about, and somebody asks you about economics, finance, or investments, and you want to sound smart, you should say it has a lot to do with interest rates. And if you just shut up, you sound good. If somebody says, well, what about? And you say they fluctuate. They say, is that good news or bad news? You say, well, it depends. Right? So can you tell me more? Then you could say, hey, I'm watching the Fed, seeing what they're doing, right? You should definitely have a general understanding of tools of the Fed and the interest rates that they target and control. They directly set the discount rate, but the Fed funds they target. So I think it'll be fine. I don't think if you miss the mark on your 65 tomorrow, it'll be economics. That is the deal. I forgot to mention that tonight we are doing a live stream overtime session. That's 15 minutes after we conclude that, where I have a whiteboard and we talk about things. I cap it at 10. It might be capped. So if it doesn't show up, that means it's full. I'll put up another one after tonight. 66. All right. 66. All right. Series 24, T+3. I like it, Tim, putting it in there. I did, Tim, get your email. I do think based on the exchange, and I think you told me Kaplan fixed it for you, or told you they're going to fix it. I think it's a grammar thing, right? I agree with you that it should say prevent money laundering. I think that's what the pivot was on that, if I understood it right. I'll give it some more time and read it again. I don't think with your scores of that particular question, it's mainly that those multiples are correct, regardless of that question stem. It's more about that answer set. Just by way of review for your 24, you definitely need to know that in the WSPs, we should have something in there about anti-money laundering. We have to have an AML officer. Surprisingly enough, Tim, test point doesn't have to be a registered person. That doesn't, it could be somebody we, get from a bank or somewhere. We have to conduct an AML test. We should know some red flags. Red flags are things that are commercially illogical, origin of funds, things like that. We should know record retention is 5 years on a CTR and a SAR. We should know, structuring is trying to avoid that. And knowing the easiest place to intervene in money laundering is at the placement stage. So, that will be testable. And I think you're in good shape based on that email exchange. I noticed that the exchanges were not with Mr. James. So, if just send me another email if that answer wasn't satisfactory, and I'll escalate that to Mr. James. Series 7, please. I don't know what you mean by Series 7, please. Is that Hui or who? I'm not sure I'm getting that correct. Is that Vietnamese? I had an old girlfriend, Hang Dang, and she was a sweetheart. Anyways, Series 7, please let me know what you want to know about Series 7. Kaplan's great for the SIE. Kaplan, like I say, Kaplan's got it covered. I think Kaplan, they just enhanced their digital learning in center. And I first was not kind of, being an old guy, like, oh, why are we doing this? But I kind of like it. Check it out. If you go backstage now, it should look different depending on when your crossover is on Kaplan content. And yeah, Kaplan, I think, is excellent for the SIE. Could you share? I don't know if she can share Brian's economics data dump because, it's copyrighted. Right. So, Yeti, I have an economics lecture. I'll do this. I will link to my economics letter. What we do in videos that we discuss in our live stream, I then pin it in the video description for you. So if you go back about an hour from now or maybe tomorrow morning, I'll pin the economics lecture. I do have Brian's permission. And what I will do is maybe in the video description, I'll cut and paste it when I talk to my friend Brian to get his permission to do so. Per capita is just the different ways that states handle wills and things, right? So per capita just means per person, right? And so, in terms of, the state, it depends on what state you're in, right? And then per stirpies, again, depending on your state, is by the branch. And what it means is it goes by the descending down the branch of the family tree. I don't think it's make or break. It's mainly definition, and it's about what it means in terms of the state you're using. So in per stirpes, it stipulates the beneficiary heirs or descendants will receive the inheritance, where in per capita, again, depends on what state you're in. It's mainly just a definitional thing about what they're doing. So hope that was helpful. I'll link with a definition of the video description for that as well for you. Amato, Amato, I'm so glad to hear that. You're one of my all-time favorites. I told you one reason I love Amato is Amato doesn't have a ghost question. Ghost questions are when somebody says there's something in the material that goes something like, and they got, 1,500 page license exam manual, 3,600 question Q bank. And Amato has always been disciplined in saying, hey, Dean, can you look at QID 1, 3, 4, 5 for me? I could be more helpful in the more particular you can be in your question to me. I can't be as helpful when, you give me a vague kind of a question. But if what I call it a ghost question is then we never get it killed. If it's a ghost question, we never really are done with it, right? It just keeps rearing its ugly head, right? So, and so again, per capita is amongst your surviving beneficiaries. So it's just definitional. I forgot. Amato. We ring our bell for our victorious test takers. Looks like Amato is going for what I call the test taking registration hat trick. That is 3 victories in a row, 3 testing victories. SIE, Series 7, 66. Unfortunately, Amato, you didn't join me for those classes. And I had a guy who did it. And when you do that, if you join me for your SIE Kaplan class, and then you get the victory, you join me for your 7 Kaplan Series 7, my Series 7 Guru Kaplan class, Series 7, and get the victory. And then you join me for the 66, and get that victory. And I had somebody complete that with me this week. And then I send you a nice little tombstone. It has the dates of your attendance in class, and then has, your date of your testing victories, gives you a little memento of all those testing victories. So you got one more to go, Motto 66. Here it comes. My brokerage uses Past Perfect, but buying Kaplan is, I think it's definitely worth it. I mean, you can get the whole thing for $55, Frank, and 80 cents with my Guru 15 discount code. So I think it's a great paid supplement for 50. Here's why I like it as a paid supplement, particularly for Past Perfect. You know what you can use the Kaplan Q Bank as a paid supplement for is confirmation, Frank, of, whether they're taking you into the weeds or not. Right. So if it's something you see in your Past Perfect practice questions, you see it in your Kaplan Q Bank, you see it on STC, for example, you see it in your Kaplan Q Bank, confirmation. If you only see it in Past Perfect or STC, you don't see it in Q Bank, Kaplan Q Bank, or vice versa, it kind of helps you confirm some of those test issues. So yes, I think if you have the resources, Frank, I know that not everybody has the resources starting out on our business. If you're poor and you deserve to be rich, our business is for you. And I understand that you may not have those resources, but if you do, there's no sense in being frugal. I mean, you may as well invest in yourself. And I think a $55 investment on your own is definitely justified. Brian, I told you, Frank, is another great paid supplement. With the discount code, that's like 100. So you'd be in, if you do a paid supplement of Test Geek and a Kaplan Q Bank, all in, it's 155 something. And then again, Frank, I just think that's better. A lot of people are suggesting that you do like Achievable and then a Kaplan Q Bank. I'm not a big fan of Achievable because I just don't like the correlation of their practice test. And so when people are using, Achievable as a supplement to STC or Past Perfect or Kaplan, then I say, well, why would you do that? Use Test Geek and use a Kaplan Q Bank. Well, make sure, you get in a good night's rest. Missed it by 2. So I think, Neil, there's, I would be surprised if you haven't picked up a couple points to make your mark from that last misfortune to tomorrow. I think you're going to get your your pass, and make your mark. Make sure you get a good night's rest. Same thing I said. The biggest things the night before are to get a good night's rest, because you need your reading skills to be in top form. And I know about you, when I'm tired, my reading skills are greatly diminished. So good night rest. Be confident in your execution of your study plan. Be confident in yourself. And again, most importantly, be confident in your answers tomorrow. Analytical methods, specifically internal rate of return, net present value. Any recommendation? I'll get those topics down. I will link, Jennifer, to a very good video I have on that. I'll just do one real quick here on the fly. This is available in video format. It doesn't lend itself well to a live stream. But let's say, Jennifer, you win the lottery. And your choices are, Jennifer, that you could have $1 million lump sum, or you can have $100,000 a year for 15 years. What we want to do is figure out what is the best deal. So what we're going to do is we're going to take those $100,000 payments you're getting, and we're going to do what's called discounted cash flow. And we're going to figure out what is the present value of 15 payments of $100,000. And so let's say that we do that, and we find out that the present value of the $100,000 payments for the next 15 years is $900,000. So in that circumstance, Jennifer, you should take the $1 million lump sum. Let's say we do that math, we do discounted cash flow, and based on that, we find out those 15 payments of $100,000 are worth $1.1 million. Well, in that case, we should take the payments. Now that sounds kind of like a bond, does it not? I mean, a bond has a series of payments to you semi-annually. And so, we might want to take a bond and say, okay, let's do discounted cash flow and see what the present value of the bond is. If I come up with a present value doing discounted cash flow on the bond, and the present value is 900, and I can get the bond for 890, I would buy the bond because it has, I should say it this way, to have a fair valuation because it has positive net present value, right? The bond, I can get it for 890 and it's at 900. If I do that and the bond's not 90, let's say it's 91, 910. And I say, well, if present value is 900, it's priced at 910, it has negative net present value. I probably would pass on that. Let me give you an example of using a cocktail party trick. Your customer is 50 years old, Jennifer, and wants to retire at 70. He has $100,000 today. Let's call that present value. He has $100,000 today. He says he wants to retire in 20 years at age 70 with $400,000. So what we want to figure out is what is the internal rate of return, Jennifer, that would take 100,000 to 400,000. What internal rate of return? When I was a practitioner, Jennifer, I was a placement agent for a lot of private equity funds. And I would say, Jennifer, we're targeting an internal rate of return of 25% in this private equity fund. And if you invest $1 million and we can get an internal rate of 25%, here's what your $1 million would look like. Here's the future value. Present value is $1 million. Let's figure out what the future value is. Now, in this example, Jennifer, of this customer, I can use a cocktail party trick here and say, okay, well, if that's 100,000 to 400,000 over 20 years, halfway through this financial journey, 10 years, if I could double the 100 to 200 in 10, and then double the 200 to 400, I would arrive at my destination. What I'm figuring out here is the internal rate of return using the rule of 72. So to figure out how long we're going to take to double money, either percentage or years, we take 72 and divide it, in this case, by the time frame. So 72 divided by 10 years, that's age 60. That's halfway to retirement at age 70. And I find out that's 7.2%. So that 7.2% is the internal rate of return that will take 100 to 200 in 10 years. If I did the math again, it's the rate of return that would take the 200 to 400. Now, let's just talk about that example I just gave you. I just gave you a net present value. Well, I gave you present value of 100, and I gave you future value of 400. Net present value is the difference between present value and whatever the number is that we're looking at. I always think of Mr. Buffett, right? So Mr. Buffett loves to do math, and he does discounted cash flow as it applies to stocks. He says, okay, what would I be willing to pay for these dividends? He owns Bank of America stock. Bank of America pays a quarterly dividend of 21 cents. And so he says, okay, what would I be willing to pay for that today? And he's going to do discounted cash flow. And he comes up, let's say he comes up with $30 as the present value of the dividends using DCF. And Bank of America is trading at 29. Well, the difference between the 29 and the 30, right? The present value of 29, present value of 29, or present value of 30 and the price of 29, that's positive net present value, right? And it could be positive or negative. He says, okay, well, if the present value is 30 and I can buy Bank of America 29, I probably should do it. So it's not going to make or break. Analytical methods is 5, 6, 7 questions. And the vast majority of those questions, Jennifer, are going to be a balance sheet. But I'll put a video whiteboard example of that in the video description after the live stream. 66. Looks like we got a lot of 66s today. I saw that, Amanda. I saw that. It sounded like you guys were doing pretty good, hammering it out on yourself. I try not to do too much on the Reddits. If it looks like people are having, getting the question right. I also didn't want to comment, Amanda, because I think the STC instructor may have been confusing soft dollar compensation of a broker dealer to an investment advisor, because it sounds like the distinction, I only know what I saw on the Reddit. There is a distinction as it applies to soft dollar compensation, where I can, as a broker dealer, pay registration fees for a seminar for investment advisor reps, but not their travel. And so I thought maybe that STC instructor had kind of a mind meld on that. So that's why I stayed out of it. But I'll look at it again, Amanda. If you'd like my comment, I'm more than happy to comment on it. The question is correct. We can, as it's due diligence, if we're educating you and it's part of due diligence, then we can pay your travel, right? So, I do a lot of work with American Funds folks. American Funds is a very reputable fund distributor. And if they want to invite you to Los Angeles to tell you about their new ETFs or something, and they want to pay for the travel, that's a normal deductible business expense. They can't pay for your spouse. The other version, I think, of that question I saw, Amanda, was the idea of a sales contest. And FINRA frowns on those substantially, right? Because it's not. Oh, it's okay to have a sales contest. I say, man, I was a top producer last year, and I won a contest at a sales contest, and the trip was to Tahiti. I plan on being a top producer this year. The trip this year is to, I don't know, Dubai. It's not best practice, but it needs to be disclosed. Oh yeah, it's okay. I saw it on the Reddit. You're welcome to put it back in the chat. I've already looked at it though, Amanda. I mean, I think the last I saw in the thread, it looked like you guys had hashed it out correctly. Series 7, 2 days. All right. Woohoo. So really, to be honest with you, that means that today is your last day of really study. Tomorrow, keep it low key. You don't want to wear yourself out before the test. So you kind of got to decelerate a little bit. Do what you need to do to put on your game face. Whether it's a nice dinner. Me, I like to smoke a cigar every now and again. Maybe have a nice scotch. So the night before, just gotta be avoid any energy vampires the day before. I mean, if you got anybody who's not going to be a force for good and helping you move the ball down the field, then I would just disappear yourself from them, I guess. Hopefully, Cheyenne, you don't have to go to work day before. If you can, that's a great day to take off. Any idea why most people scored lower on economics questions? I don't know. I didn't know that to be true. I mean, I'm not sure where that data is coming from. I always joke, nobody expects you on the test to be an economist. They expect you're not going to embarrass the firm at a cocktail party. So it's very low end kind of economics. So I'm not sure, Yeti, where you're saying why most people score. I don't know what data set you're looking at to say that. So, but that happens a lot. I get people like all the time saying, "Oh, there was more preferred stock questions than I thought." And I have the same response. Well, I don't know. What were you thinking? So I don't know. Is there any recommendation for no? Maybe I would tell you get plugged in current events. I mean, the economics is current right now, right? The Fed has taken a pause in terms of raising interest rates. They were trying to slow down demand. So, Germany just entered a recession. Test question: 2 calendar quarters of declining GDP for Germany, right? So maybe if you start getting engaged in current events, I think that would be helpful. What else is helpful? I mean, it's kind of tough because it's a big topic, right? I mean, in college you would do micro one semester, macro the next, and here it's kind of superficial, but yeah, the value of the dollar is testable. So I don't have any tricks on that one. I don't have any tricks. But again, if you tell me you missed the mark on 65 because of economics, I'm going to say, you had other problems. By the way, that's the biggest distinction between 65 and 66. The biggest distinction between 65 and 66 is 65 does have economics questions, whereas the 66 does not. For the most part. I mean, they have a couple, but nothing is in depth. Dean, what percentage of questions relate to options? I think 20 questions plus or minus. So it depends on your draw, but 20 questions. Option falls within the category of the Series 7 called Function 2. 91 questions are on providing product information to customers. So it's big. It's big. You heard correctly, Frank. There's only 3 or 4 margin questions. Margins is a waste of your time. There's 2 big time sucks for all test prep vendors. It's partnerships and margin. There is nowhere near as many margin and partnership questions as you get in all the vendors' practice questions. So that would be an area, in the old days, the study materials were in a loose leaf binder. And, I would tell people, take out those chapters and throw them in the trash. But the margin questions are there. I have I'll link, Frank. I have a margin lecture. It's called Don't Overdose on Margin, right? I think it's sufficient. Now, we don't know what 3 or 4 are going to be there, but you certainly need to know documentation, the credit agreement, the hypothecation agreement, mandatory loan consent form is not. You definitely need to know the $2,000 minimum. In every version of that trick, under 2, you pay in full. Between 2 and 4, you pay 2. That's definitely there. You should definitely know market value of maintenance, debit by 0.75. For a long account, credit by 1.3. You should definitely know the 25%, the 30%. You should know the classical margin equation, long market value minus debit equals equity, credit minus short market value equals equity. So, but all that work, I'm just, you said, well, Jason, you said 3 or 4. I said, yeah. But, we don't know 3 or 4, but there's pretty straightforward. So if you tell me you missed a mark on 7 because of margin, I'm going to say, no, you had a different problem. Now, sounds like Amanda's part of our Reddit community. We do have Reddit communities, sister communities to the YouTube channel. We have our Series 7 for your SIE exam and your Series 7 exam. We have R66. That's a subreddit for 63, 65, 66. And we have a subreddit R Series 24 for 9, 10s, and 24s. Right. The reason I bring that up in the comments after the live stream, I always link to those sister communities. But the reason I bring it up is, Frank, every once in a while, somebody on Reddit will put, I had 30 margin questions. And, it's hard because I don't want to say liar, but I would tell you that whatever you're not comfortable with, you're going to swear you probably had more of them, right? Suitability is big because it ties into the products, right? So 20 on options plus or minus, 20 on mutual funds plus or minus, 20 on muni bonds. And the suitability are judgment questions. So the 3 styles of questions you get, Frank, are recognition, like T plus 1, 11:59 p.m. Eastern time, third Friday. You get practical application. Can you calculate parity, for example? What's the break even? The third style question you get on the test are called judgment questions. And those are tough. Those are 10% of your exam is like judgment questions where you go, oh, man, I don't know. I get it to a 50-50. And that would be the suitability questions. Now, some of those are pretty straightforward, but, like you don't recommend a partnership if somebody needs liquidity. But some of them are judgment questions. So the way you handle or tackle suitability, and my recommendation, Frank, is make sure you're solid on the products. If you're solid on the investment vehicles, and suitability becomes a little less judgment, a little more aim and shoot. You can at least get to a 50-50 quickly on that. So I believe you have mini Series 7 pod. I have 7 playlists for Series 7, and one of those playlists, Frank, is suitability. I have a suitability exam practice test. I have a suitability in 60 minutes. I have, I forget, but there's 4 of them. I think 4 or 5 videos in the playlist. I will link to that playlist in the video description. Kaplan final scores for Jennifer going down for the 66. Started at 77, got 73. That's fine. No, I don't think so. Now, this is Dean, Jennifer, not Kaplan. Higher the better. But I think as long as you're in that mid-70 range and you know why you're answering questions, or which you know what question you're being asked, I'm not even concerned if you miss the question, as long as you know what the question was asking and what the answer is being offered to you. I'm less concerned if you pick the wrong one, just as long as you know what they were. Don't ever take one that you don't know what it is. But I think that's fine. I don't know scores going down. That's, some days aren't good days. I mean, I always say inch by inch, your exam's a cinch, yard by yard, your exam is hard. And, take a break. I don't know when you're testing. You can wear yourself out. Some people do work too hard. I can't tell you how many times somebody will tell me their exams are going down. I say, well, when's the last one? I did 3 today. I go, well, no wonder. I mean, you're tired. You got to give yourself permission. I said, take a day off to refresh and reset and come back to it. It might be you're just too close to it. Depending on your timing, right? And come back. And I can't tell you how many times people's scores have popped just because they stepped away, refresh, reset, and then back to it, right? So that would be my recommendation, depending on your timing. And then, as I said, not every day is a good day, so you just got to take another one. And I had a guy, we were doing great, and all of a sudden he had a terrible score. I said, well, let's get rid of that, man. Let's find out if that's a statistical anomaly, just a bad draw or bad day or whatever, and let's get that out of our system. And he got back on that horse and got those scores right back where they should be, right? What are the most testable regulation topics on Series 7? Well, I don't know that regulations as a topic is a big deal, but you should certainly know 33, the prospectus or paper act. Sometimes you get questions, right, Cheyenne, by covering up the screen. Are they asking me about prospectuses, paper? 33. Are they asking me about people and places? 34. All that legislation was called the New Deal. That was President Roosevelt. That means the old deal must have sucked. So 33 says if you're going to sell brand new securities to the public, what kind of securities? Brand new. To whom? The public. You have to make a registration statement. So that's very testable, right? We make our registration statement. We enter the cooling off period or quiet time, minimum of 20 days. We can send you a preliminary prospectus, also known as red herring, has everything except the final offering price. Based on that, We can accept indication of interest, which are non-binding on all parties. We can place a tombstone. And then we should know that there are safe harbors. There are exemptions where we can sell brand new securities without making a registration statement. So, Reg A, for example, that's not Bob Marley music. Reg A is a safe harbor, an exempt transaction under 33, where we can't raise more than 75 million. We have Rule 147, an interstate offering of securities. We have Reg D, both 506B and 506C. So that would be, where I would think most of the regulatory questions would come from. Then we also have 34, people and places. These are the things that we can't like front run and all that kind of stuff. I would add to 33 and 34. So, I'm just doing this on the fly, basically. But I would also say you should be solid on what's called the code of conduct. The code of conduct is the ethical behavior that broker dealers and associated persons owe customers. And that's big time test fire. I don't do breakpoint sales. I don't sell dividends. I don't churn. I don't front run. I don't peg. I don't cap, all those things, right? I kind of joke. It's not good if you pass your 7 and come back and say, I want to do some breakpoint sales and sell some dividends, open some fictitious accounts, do some front running, right? Those are all the bad things. So I would throw that into that regulatory category, even though FINRA is an SRO and not the SEC. Still struggling on how to identify when they use the rule of 72. So I guess what I would say is anytime you run into a question about present value, future value, internal rate of return, say, I'm going to see if I can use 72. I would recognize the symmetry. But again, if you tell me you messed the mark because of present value, future value, and internal rates of return, net present value, I'm going to say, no. In fact, usually it's a siren song. It's mainly input and output, right? So for example, what I needed to solve that future value of 400, let's say I didn't have the 400. It's not can Dean figure out, 100 to 400. It would be what would be the input. I need present value. I need the return, 7.2. I need the number of compounding periods, 20 years. That would give me that 400 grand if I plug those numbers into the formula. Or to go from future value to present value, I have the future value, 400. I need the number of compounding periods, 20. I need the 7.2. So it's mainly input, not can you do the math. In fact, you can't do the math because they don't give you a calculator that has a nth degree calculation key, right? You're going to get a calculator that looks like this, a simple function calculator. So at some point, you got to decide that's you spent too much. You're welcome, Tim. You're welcome. Hello, Mom, not Dean. Marcel, thank you so much. So yeah, Mom is off at her meeting. So we'll see. A lot of drama. My mom is 80 years old and she has these senior women that she runs around with. And I'll tell you, Marcel, they remind me of schoolgirls. When Mom comes home and tells me all the drama, like, oh my God. I was joking, Marcel, that to my brother that I need a little mom break. Mom's retired. I take care of Mom. And Marcel was kind enough to take Mom and I to a nice dinner when he was out here in Las Vegas. And I was going to, ship Mom off to my brother for a couple of weeks. And then one of her friends said she was going to Europe and did Mom want to come with her? So Marcel, I'm sending Mom to Europe. And so I told my brother, I said, never mind. So I've got my mom break. Send her off to Europe for 2-3 weeks. That'll give me a little bit of a break. Here is the scenario above. I don't see that, Amanda. Well, I can't bring up STC QIDs. So I can bring up a Kaplan QID. But again, Amanda, I will I'll comment on you posted on the Reddit. I'll put my 2 cents on the Reddit, but I thought you guys had it under control. But I will comment. I'll go back to Reddit this evening at some point and comment. Well, KEOs are no longer available. Senator Keogh has been dead for a long time, and so has a KEO plan. So KEOs are for self-employed individuals. Now what they use is what's called a sole 401k. So there is no test question, 0, about a KEO plan. And if they test you on a solo 401k, it would be for the same kind of a question used to be about a KEO for self-employed people. A simple plan is, again, for smaller employers to provide retirement for the principals of the firm as well as the employees. So again, not a big test issue. You want to make sure you stay on the broad avenues and highways of the information. 15 days out, could you tip me in the right direction on what you feel the top 3 most important concepts to understand and double down on my studies. Yeah, I think for both 66 and 65, surprisingly, right? You wouldn't know it based on this chat. That's what's so scary about 65 and 66. I think people go down these alleys and don't stay on the broad avenues and highways of the content. So you can get down there and it's not going to pay dividends for you. On both exams, Brian, disclosures, sunlight is the best disinfectant, and unethical business practices. That is about a quarter of both of those exams. So those would be two areas where I would make sure I'm solid on 65 and 66 on disclosures necessary, like acting on dual agency transaction, or, if there's a related conflict of control relationships between broker dealers and the investment advisor, or the issuer and the broker dealer, all that kind of stuff. And unethical business practices, I called it the code of conduct with FINRA, but NASA has their kind of version. NASA is a bigger deal, by the way, because NASA is not, your state administrator isn't an SRO. But same thing, they no breakpoint sales, no selling dividends, all that same kind of stuff, right? So those would be the two I would point you to. On tips, I don't think I have I don't have tips, tricks, and memory aids for the 65. I do have tips, tricks, and memory aid video for SIE and Series 7. That's a good idea, Alex Showable. I do have 65 and 60 minutes, which is very popular. And I think the tips, this is on me a little bit. I don't know how many of you matriculated through your exams with me, but I know that there are some people who've been with us on the channel for their SIE, then they're 7, and then they're 66, or their SIE, they're 6, they're 63, 65. And so perhaps maybe that's why I haven't done that, even though there are some people who are just taking 65. If you're just going to be a fee-based investment advisor, you don't need an SIE and you don't need a 6 and a 63. And so that's probably a short-sighted on my part. Maybe I should make a tips, tricks, and memory aids, even though I would suggest you could watch that for, I think, the SIE, and I don't think it would be inappropriate. I think I'm just trying to think in my own head, is there anything in that SIE version that would not be appropriate for the 65? I don't think so. I'll link to that, Alex Schobel, and you can watch that. And then, feel free in the comment or reach out to me. Hey, Dean, I'm the 65 person. Do I need to worry about this? And then I can elaborate on that, explicate whether I think it's, is, and, what would be the twist on the 65 or what it would be. Donata, do you have a video or data dump for 66? I don't. Same thing. I think the closest to a data dump would be, Brian's PDF, but it's not really a data dump. I think the investment advisor representative 65, 66 doesn't lend itself well to a data dump as much as the other exams. What you can do is Google data dump 66 and see what other people have done. I suggest you have your own version of that, but you can do that. Kaplan has what's called a quick sheet, a 65, 66 quick sheet, but the answer is no, it just doesn't lend itself. It's kind of a slog. Series 7, thank you so much for putting in that format. I feel like I'm reading the book 4 to 5 hours a day. Well, first, make sure you're breaking that up. You can't possibly sustain concentration for 4 to 5 hours a day. So my recommendation would be, first, let's call it 5 hours a day. So I'm going to tell you 4.5. And here's what I'm going to tell you I want you to do. If you were going to read, I don't think you should read that long a day. I would do 90 minutes study block, read, 30 minutes, take a break, 90 minutes, read, 30-minute break, 90 minutes. That puts you at 4.5 hours of reading. I would track your page count, because what we want you to do is read the book cover to cover. It sounds like you're doing that. I love that. Giving you unlimited time. Well, that's fantastic. Is this normal? Yes, it's a slog. I also would suggest rotating your activity. So I don't think I would recommend that you do 3 90-minute study blocks of reading the book. I would do 90 minutes of reading the book and then 30-minute break. And then I do, maybe practice questions on what I read, quizzes, see where I'm at on that. Maybe the third block, I do some, watch some videos. If you break that up into study blocks and you rotate both activity and subject area, you'll stay fresher longer. So that would be my recommendation. I would want you to read that book in as close to one setting as possible. If that's all you're doing as a full-time studier, I wouldn't even try and take notes or understand it. You just want to see what's between the covers on that first read. And by the way, whether it's Kaplan or STC or Past Perfect, same recommendation. Past Perfect has like 3 slimmer volumes of it, but that would be the first thing. When I'm taking a test, it's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. When I take a test, the first thing I do is read the book cover to cover and as close to one setting as possible. Take a break, and then I decide, how I'm going to, take this, how I'm going to eat this thing, right? As I said, tiny bites after that. I had one guy who was incredulous. He said, how am I going to do that? How many hours am I going to take? I said, well, read for 90 minutes, see how many pages you read, then do the page count, divide by your read rate, and I'll tell you how many hours it's going to take you to read the book cover to cover. Every once in a while, again, I don't know why people do this, but somebody on social media says, I didn't read the book and I passed fine. Well, kept fine. But, I kind of wanted to tell this person it's very high risk. This person was basically putting it out there that he's not going to do that. And I'm no longer a practitioner. I no longer have baby brokers working for me. But if he was my baby broker and he told me he wasn't going to read that book and he missed his mark, man, he better come up with a good reason why I'm not going to U5 him. Because that's hubris in a bad, bad way. Right? I mean, I'd say, man, there's 2 things that as an accountability partner that I would be looking for is, what was your QBank usage rate? And, did you read the book? Now, it's hard to monitor reading the book. So, backstage, if it's a corporate trainer person, what they can see is like what you're doing on practice question. They can't see you reading the book. So sometimes, that's harder to articulate them that you spent, an hour or so reading the book. There you go. There you go. Hope we reach out. There you go. That's great. Get the test date. So Isaac, I think Isaac, weren't you and I going to do a series 6, I think, together? I think we were. So just reach out to me. And shared screen final, I think, if it's the time Isaac. So just reach out. We want to do that probably closer to your exam date, maybe 7-10 days out. If it's a different Isaac, I apologize, but always get a test date. I've had people, who are booking tutoring before they even have a test date. And I say, well, your brain will do better. So again, best practice. You don't have to get a test date. But I told this person, I said, listen, I'm not going to meet with you again until you have a test date. Because your brain, will draw you to it. You can need a test date so your brain starts thinking. I said, build in a fudge factor if you want. I don't care what your date is, but get one. Get one. Brian, where are you at? Do you need the sign in? There you go. Brian, you need the, let me see if I can get Brian in here. Hold on, Brian. Let's go get Brian. Let's see if we can get him in here. Boo, boo, boo. And Brian, the invite's coming to you, my friend. Here we go. I'll be impressed if I can do this on the fly. I'm not very good at doing things on the fly. Okay, Brian, you should be able to get into the stream. And let me see if Brian shows up here. Brian probably waited till the very last step. Small farmers compliant associate. By the way, did you get Brian's? That's Brian. Brian is Test Geek Exam Prep LLC. So that's Brian. All right, Brian, test question is the. Let me get rid of that, Brian. Let me get rid of this. Let me get rid of that. Whoop. Let me get rid of this. How impressive! You should know I'm easily impressed with myself.
Hey, everybody. What's happening? I've been listening for the last 45 minutes. I just thought,
why didn't you send me the thing? I just I
sent you a text, but you didn't get it.
Oh, well, hey, you should have, let's see. Now I got to find out where we're at.
Yeti's been mentioning about the econ section of the 65.
Yeah. What's the thing you said you have, Brian?
The biggest reason why people struggle with that is because that's where the balance sheets are.
Okay.
And the quant analysis. And that's what they struggle with. Not really the econ. It's the balance sheets.
Okay. Oh, well, that's easy. So I'll link to the balance sheet lecture I have, and Brian has a good one. We'll link to both of those. So there we go. Thanks, Brian. That makes some sense. Because I'm going, okay, well, there's not much to it. Fiscal, monetary, Currently, we're going to small firm as compliance. I'm licensed and have 24. What steps do you suggest to further my career? I don't know. We're not career counselors, Blake, unfortunately. I got very lucky in the business. Brian, you have any career advice for how to get to your next?
Start his own firm.
Start your own firm. I would say I've always been pretty blessed, but I did it kind of weird way. I always tried to add value, Blake, more than I was compensated, and then say it's time to compensate me, or I'll go get that in the marketplace. So, but I was pretty aggressive. I'm not sure that would, if I were starting over, maybe it wouldn't have worked. It worked for me. I was pretty aggressive. Brian and I spent some time at the major corporation, even as trainers. And I was one of the few guys at Kaplan who said, no, that's not going to work for me. Sorry. You need to pay me X.
Yeah, you and I are entrepreneurs too. So
Yeah, I think that it's a kind of a I'm not so sure, Blake, I would take Brian's advice. I had my own firm called Gamma Global Investments. And I got to tell you, Blake, it's not all it's cracked up to be. I mean,
it's a whole new world.
You get expenses like variable expenses, and you go, what the heck is this? I mean, so there's two businesses that aren't all that cracked up to be: owning your own broker dealer. And again, my clients and I financed a brasserie in the restaurant business. Oh my God. The margins, Brian and I in this business, the margins are excellent. Those other businesses, maybe not so much more. You confirmed that many people scored lower on his video. There we go. Okay, so that's where that's coming from. So that's good data. If you're getting it from Brian, that's good data. What's that?
I'm sorry. Balance sheets, Yeti.
Yeah, there you go. For 66, how relevant are exempt and non-exempt questions? In that category, Andrew, I think it's more important to know about the investment advisory firm, investment advisor reps, broker dealers, agents of broker dealers, than it is about securities. Maybe 3 or 4 questions on exempt securities and then non-exempt securities and transactions that allow us to sell them. I don't think it's a lot to remember. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, I don't even think it's 3 or 4. It's probably more.
Yeah, there you go. So I think a lot of people get in the weeds on that. Brian has a nice little cheat sheet, I think he calls it. I have a video I'm working on where it's kind of a flow chart on where these things go. And but again, I think I don't know. You said you were listening the whole time, Brian?
Yeah.
So the other thing I was stressing, and Brian and I did a 65 and a 66 podcast. And on both of those, we tell people, I'm paraphrasing, but we are more worried about people going down rabbit holes on those exams and not staying on the broad avenues and highways of the information. In other words, they get sucked into, a particular thing that really isn't a big deal, right? So, Brian's word for this is that Brian and I attempt, I'm not as good at it as Brian, to distill that information, right? So the test prep vendors don't do a good job of distillation, particularly on those exams. Well, thank you, Alex. Thank you. Is there an easier way to remember whether an estate entity avoids probate or not, or what should be paid? There is 0 questions on what you owe for an estate tax. I think you definitely need to know about dead people. What happens in joint tenants with rights of survivorship, tenants in common? What happens to powers of attorney? I joke, I see dead people on the exam. Anytime there's something about some dead person, you should know, whether it's a step up in the basis or whatever it happens to be. But on both the questions you asked thus far, I think it's in the weeds again. I don't think, Brian, I think the previous question was per stirpes, per capita. What do you think? One question maybe?
Yeah, and also if in an estate the trustee dies, there are successor trustees, there's beneficiaries. None of that goes through probate. If that's the question.
There you go.
None of that goes through probate.
Make sure if you don't, again, I just would recommend, if you haven't already, buy Brian's supplement, because he does a good job on that stuff. Right now I do blocks of reading and then your videos relative to what I just read. Okay, that works. Stay away from the Q bank until the book is done. I like that. And then you're going to do the things. I like it. By the reading a section, watching an on-demand video, then practice, great. There you go. I like the videos because it puts a dent in the reading. So whether you want to put the dent in the reading by watching the video first, or a dent in the reading after you've read it, I think videos are a great supplement for the reading. It's not a substitute for the reading, but it's a good way to put a dent into it. And then you got to do practice questions, right? Brian thinks you don't need to do as many as I think you need to do. What is your Brian? 75%, then move on to then
Yeah,
unit
I don't
2
think you
and
need
unit 3. So.
4,000.
Besides seesaw options chart, what are the next most valuable things I should put on my dump sheet? Well, Cheyenne, I have a whole video called Tips, Tricks, and Memory Aids for the Series 7, and I will link to that in the video description, and I have lots of stuff on there. It's the stuff that we all know, Epic, for example, just off the derp, things like that. So remember, make it your own. Don't steal somebody else's. Just you might use that as a, if you Google it, all kinds of dump sheets will come up, but make your own. If I told you, Cheyenne, you could have one sheet of paper on it, anything front and back, what would be on it? If you then made that sheet, and every night before you went to bed, looked at it, tried to do it did it in the morning. By now in test time, you'd be able to do that when you get to the exam, and that's not cheating. It is not cheating to do that once you arrive at the exam. Is the Kaplan Q Bank basically a random generated final exam test for the series? Yeah. It randomly will pull questions. And Brian and I both think the best thing about Kaplan, I think the biggest competitive advantage to Kaplan is the performance tracker that will tell you where you're weak and where you need to remediate. So that's what you should be doing, is going through the performance tracker, see where you're weak. It puts it in red, and I call it above par, par, below par. Red is below par, below passing. Par is your passing. Above par means you're above the passing rate, and you want to put everything above par. So that's what I would recommend. For the shared screen final, I would sign up for 1 hour tutor session on your website. I'm going to make Jennifer a different button for doing shared screen finals, because it depends how long you and I chat about it. And so, I wouldn't just assume that if you buy an hour tutoring, I'm doing a shared screen practice final with you. That's something that is, you sign up for the tutoring and tell me you want to do it. Then I usually say, okay, you book, and then I'll comp what we run over. But so yeah, you don't sign up for a practice test session by booking a tutoring session. You book a tutoring session, then we can decide whether we're going to do a shared screen final. So let's be very clear. I don't want anybody thinking if they go to my booking page and they book an hour, they're getting to do a shared screen practice final with me. I just did a 24 one. It's 4 hours. That's not something I'm going to do for an hour. So I got to have a button, Brian, where you hit the button if you want to do that. Yeah, Isaac, I did Isaac, thank you for everything. Isaac, I think, is doing a 6. And so in that case, Jennifer, I need some 6 content. So I'm more, likely to do that if it's something that I need some more content for. I think our 6s don't get enough love, to be honest with you. We got a lot of love for 7s and not so much love for 6s. It's not intentional, by the way. Question that may pertain to everyone. My understanding is FINRA got rid of Roman numerals. It's true, Tim. There are no Roman numeral questions on FINRA exams. They only exist on NASA. Tim, you're going to get Brian and I going on a rant. I have a whole rant and video called Legacy Questions. And Tim, the reason is it's not only Kaplan, STC, Past Perfect, nobody wants to cull their Q bank and get rid of all those questions that they've had for years. And so there's 2 problems with that, Tim. That there's legacy questions too that haven't been tested in years. That's for all exams. So, but NASA exam does have multiples of multiples. What do you think? 4 or 5, Brian, of the multiples of multiples on NASA exams?
Yeah, they've not even reduced theirs. Yeah,
not a lot. Yeah, I'm with you, Tim. You're preaching to the choir. There's questions that every once in a while somebody wants me to go over in video format, and I'll do it, but I don't put it on the channel because nobody's seen it in years. I got a 68. I was not able to reschedule till February, and I stopped studying. Not sure to restart. It's 68. A new exam is what? I'm trying to figure that out. April 10th. Is that April 10th? I would start by doing a practice final, Gina, and just see how much is the residual still there, and use that as your kickoff, and then go from that. What do you think, Brian? Any ideas? I'd start
exactly right. Yeah, start with the simulated exam. Use the performance tracker. Identify the weak areas. Great place to start. Yeah.
3 weeks out. How many practice tests should I take? Everybody's different. I would like you to 7-10 days out. Really accelerate that. So I think 3 weeks out is a little early to start doing practice test after practice test after practice. So if we're trying to get marks. So if it were 7-10 days out, I'd like to see 3, 4, 5 practice test scores. That's 7-10 days out. Yourself, Brian?
Yeah, exactly. Right. We got that that timeline, 7-10 days, practice finals, performance tracker. 3 weeks out, a little early.
We don't give tips. It's kind of funny. Fancy Face by Kiza, I guess. Let's be clear. The YouTube channel isn't about career advice for people who want to get new jobs after they're 24 or people trying to get in the securities industry. Our mission is to help people pass their tests once they're in that. So what tips can I give to a new investor? I would say buy a mutual fund. As a new investor, should I study broker-dealer language to have effective communication? Well, I think it's on the broker-dealer to effectively communicate with you, the customer, not the other way around. But that being said, yeah, get active. Open an account at TD Ameritrade, or now they're merging with Schwab or Fidelity, or I'm suggesting a discount firm just because they have a lot more educational material available in general than going through your Morgan Stanley or Merrill Lynch broker. But yeah, get engaged somehow, some way. Start watching CNBC. Kramer, Mad Money. He has his Investors Club. So I would say just get plugged into the environment. What do you think, Brian? Any advice for new?
Yeah, those are excellent. I always like to read too. Go into your nearest Amazon bookstore and find some books on investing. And
so, Jennifer, that's how you book tutoring with Brian, but he's very selective about who he accepts. Oh, sorry, wrong one, Brian. There we go. But he's very selective about who he does and does not accept as a tutoring assignment.
Again, depending on where you are in the timeline.
Yeah. And he's a great deal. He's $125 arbitrage opportunity. I'm $225. So he is a great value. So get him while you can, because I keep telling him he's got to raise his price. Let's see. Let's see. I think we're coming up on our drawing. We're a little over, actually.
Yes,
let's see. Did I miss anybody? If I missed you, feel free. I'll put my email up there, and feel free to, if I missed your question, just send it to me at deantheseries7guru@gmail.com. And if I missed your question, I'll take it up with you personally. Brian, return my email for tutoring. That's Gina. So Gina, maybe you didn't make the cut. Maybe he didn't return it because he doesn't want to accept you as a client. No, I'm teasing. I'm teasing. I got to tell you.
Do you have trouble?
Yeah.
Do you have trouble responding to every email you get? I'm really struggling to keep up on it. I'm trying to be better at it. I really do. I really struggle.
So we're welcome. You did finally join us tonight. So that means you get to pick what our drawing word will be for the night. What you want to put in there?
This is just off the top of my head.
Hey, Brian, look what I did for you, my friend.
Tulip.
Got my bling.
There you go.
When we go gambling. Got my
I'll be down tomorrow.
Got my blue sapphire ring. Woo! Tulip. Why are we putting tulip in there? Because of the tulip craze or what?
It's spring.
Oh, okay. I like it. I like it. By the way, it's got to be exactly. Sorry, guys. Hold on, Yeti. It's got to be exactly as I'm going to put it on the screen. So be careful here. Let me go get our screen. You can't put it in all caps. The drawing won't work if you don't put it in exactly the way it's showing up. Okay.
There you go.
And remember, you'll get the. You need to claim you're winning within an hour of the drawing, and then you'll get the Zoom invite for Friday. It's not a floating contingency. If you can't make it, well, then give it to someone else, because as Brian said, both of us are just we apologize, but it's not like we have a staff of people to help us with logistics and returning emails and that kind of stuff. Some of those you've registered for the live stream overtime, I'll see you guys in 15 minutes in the Zoom virtual classroom. Those of you who registered for that, you can register for that at deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. There is not one up there now, but I'll put it on there in a little bit. Let me put that up there. That's how you would register for the free live stream overtime session. But tonight's version is full. All right, so let's do our drawing anymore. Last call. All right, here we go. Boom. Austin. Okay, so Austin, send me an email, deantheseries7guru@gmail.com. and I will be more than happy to send you that Zoom invite and help you with any exam you may have a question on. Let's go back to Brian and I. Let me get rid of the email. Thank you so much. We're here every Tuesday helping you with content, some good fun and fellowship. So tell your friends, join us. If you don't have any questions, still come to, just hang out. You're not alone in taking your test. Remember, inch by inch, your exam's a cinch. Yard by yard, your exam is hard. And Brian, you say?
Keep it simple. Stay with what you know. You take the test. Don't let the test take you.
Woohoo! We'll see you next Tuesday, guys. Bye-bye, and gals.